everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Sooner Girl Sports Pod. And this week, I interview my friend Tyler McComas from KREF Radio, and I was very thankful that he came on the show with me today. We talk a little bit about OU football, basketball, and a whole lot of softball. So I hope that you enjoy today's episode with Tyler McComas. Well, thank you so much for taking the time for me. I really appreciate it. Well, I'm in my baseball jersey, which is as close to softball as I can get. What a weekend in Waco, right?
Well, no, I mean, it really was. It's like the 6-0 California trip was a nice start. It really was. But I think that we all came out of that weekend saying, I'm not going to complain about 6-0. Some people did. I was not one of those. But it was a 6-0 weekend, but there's still more there. Like, they can still be better in some spots. And a lot of those spots where we thought, okay, well, they can be better here, they were in Waco.
They were.
I don't even think the most optimistic OU fan would have predicted that OU would have. I mean, 4-0 was a pretty safe bet. I don't know, safe bet, but a lot of people predicted. But 4 5-inning run rules against a top 25 Baylor team that's pretty good. I mean,
I didn't see that coming.
It was a fantastic weekend. And I think, my big takeaway is that was great. That was good. That looked like OU softball. That's not the best of what this team has to offer either. So I would say that to OU fans as well, as be excited about that. But at the same time, don't think that that's the best version of this team that you're going to see this year, because I only think with a young team with so much new, they're going to get better and better and better. And what is that product going to look like when they hit their peak? That's fun to think about for me.
It really is. I didn't get to watch every game this weekend. I was traveling for our anniversary, actually. And so I listened if I wasn't watching. But I was very impressed with, well, of course, Sam Landry on Sunday with her perfect game. But after that game was over Sunday, I told my husband, I think we just had 4 run rules this weekend. And I did not anticipate that happening. I was talking to another friend last week, and he actually thought that Baylor might get us on one of those games. And I mean, I couldn't really argue with him because you just never know, and they've done it before. But of course, I'm always trying to be optimistic on, oh no, we're not going to get beat. But I certainly did not expect to run roll Baylor twice. In fact, I told my husband on Saturday after the first game, I said, Baylor's mad. They're going to come back tomorrow, and I think we'll see a different Baylor team, and they're going to give us all we can take. And they didn't.
But like you said, it's happened before. OU's lost in that same Getterman Classic before, a team that's won a national championship and then went on to the greatest winning streak in college softball history. Like, there's been a legendary OU softball team that's lost to Baylor in that spot. It was less than ideal conditions. It was cold. It was so cold on Sunday, they had to move the game an hour back. And every single lineup is different from the rest, and you're hitting here in the order, there in the order. And I don't think that they're a finished product. I don't. But I was just so impressed the growth that we saw from week 1 of the season to week 2 of the season. That to me is the storyline. It was incredible.
I agree. Like I said, we know you've talked too about Sam Landry, and she was kind of like our favorite pitcher, coming out of the fall, and I definitely didn't disagree with that. But she was so fun to watch. I did get to watch Sunday that second game, and she's really fun. And I really feel like Audrey Lowry, she's done very well. I didn't know what to expect from her, but I think, my goodness, if these girls keep getting better, which they will, it's amazing to think what the product is. And I just keep thinking, all of those girls that left, that graduated, that was the greatest class of all time. I mean, they were. And to think that Patty somehow got this group of people together and they're doing what they're doing now is just incredible to me. I mean, a winning product will draw in people that want that culture and want that work, but it's still just mind-blowing to me. It truly is. And Patty's something else. And I'm really pumped about her coaching the USA team, going to the Olympics and it being in Oklahoma City. I cannot imagine how crazy that time is going to be. And I'm pumped for it. I'm excited. I'm planning to go. And I just think, that's a few more years from now. And I don't know what her timeline is looking like as far as retiring, but I think that woman's going to go win a gold medal and then retire. And really, what else can you do? She is already like the greatest softball coach ever, in my opinion. I mean, I know there's several other contenders, but my goodness. And for her to go, and if she does win a gold medal, I just think that'll seal the deal.
Well, it was a brilliant move by USA Softball for a few different reasons. One, the obvious, you said it, she's the GOAT.
Yeah.
And I think what was I reading? Like USA Softball hasn't won a gold medal in like 20 years, something like that. Now they haven't had softball at the Olympics every single year, but I think Japan's won the last two. So it's like,
Right. Okay.
okay, it's on our home soil, haven't won it in like over 20 years. Like we got to go get a gold medal. So to go hire
Yes.
the coach is a great idea. But okay, I'll just use you as a prime example. You just said in 2028 that when the games are here, you're going to find a way there. And maybe you would have anyway. But as an OU fan, you are definitely going to show up now to support Patty Gasso. You want to see that.
1000%.
It was smart to get the GOAT as the head coach, but all of us OU fans, myself included, I mean, I love my country, so I'm going to show up. I love softball because I want to show up. I've never been to an Olympics before. That's cool. But we're going to show up to support Patty Gasso because it feels like in a lot of ways we're supporting, and who knows what other players from OU are going to be there as well. That place is going to be jumping.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah. And Patty Gasso coaching in that stadium is just, there's no one better to coach in Hall of Fame State, Devon Park. I'll always call it Hall of Fame.
Me too. Me too.
But yeah, there's no one better to coach there than her. And I'm excited. My niece, we go together to a lot of softball games, and we have for years. And so she asked me when they announced that the Olympics were going to be in Oklahoma City, she was like, "Are you going to try to get us tickets?" And I was like, "Yes, we will go. I may have to sell a kidney, but we will go." And now, absolutely, I may have to sell 2 kidneys, but we will be there because Patty Gasso, hello. Yeah, it's happening. So I just, that's going to be the ultimate scenario. And like you said, I mean, several years down the road, who knows what OU players will be there with her, but there'll be some, more than 1 or 2, I'm sure. So it'll be fantastic. I'm more than excited about that.
I mean, it is kind of fun to think about which players, like former players and even current players,
No.
have a chance to make this. Like Jocelyn Allo will have a great chance to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Jada Coleman, I think, would have a great chance. T.R.A. Jennings, Kelly Maxwell, who's been with Team USA here recently, dominating. I mean, Ella Parker's hitting almost 700 right now by 2028. What is she going to look like? So, I mean, I think Patty is going to put like, and here's what I love about Patty is I don't think that she'd show any OU bias. I think she just put the best team out there to go win a gold medal.
Agreed.
But she could not show bias, and there's still going to be. I mean, OU is going to be the most represented team on that roster, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. There'll definitely be several. Even, I mean, I know there's great players on other squads, and everybody knows that. But I agree with you. She's not going to show a bias. She's going to pick the best. But for us, that means that the best, a lot of those are Sooners. So good for us. And we're going to be in the backyard. So yeah, it's going to be packed. I don't know what their setup will be. I imagine that they'll do the outfield stands and all of that like they usually do for the World Series, and they're going to need it because they'll pack it out for sure. It's very exciting to think that that's even a possibility. So I was wondering, back to present day. So this coming weekend, the games got pushed back a couple of days because of the weather. What are you thinking about our matchups, coming into Norman?
Well, I mean, frankly, I think that they're all matchups that OU should. I mean, if it looks anything like last weekend, they should handle and take care of business. I don't know if they're going to get 5 run rule victories, and I don't think it has to be like our expectations are so high. I don't think it has to be 5 run rule victories for it to be a successful weekend.
Agreed.
I'd probably say Wichita State would be the best out of the 5 that they're going to face. That would probably be my guess at this point. But I think the important thing to me is, I'm just really glad that these games are going to be played.
Yes,
it's annoying that I have to wait a couple of more days for Sooner softball because I get it. The weekend's over. I'm like, dang it, I need this to happen now. But this team needs to play games, and it needs to play as many games as possible because each game is like an opportunity for growth, and that's what last weekend was. And just continue to play a lot of games, put themselves in situations like that's the best way that this team is going to grow. Just continue to play games, put certain players in certain spots. It's not a murderer's row, non-conference schedule from here until the South Carolina series. It's not, but there can still be a lot of good and there can still be a lot of progress that happens along the way. And look, we know what good softball looks like. If anybody knows what good college softball looks like, it's we, the OU fans. So I think that we would be educated enough at this point to where OU doesn't need to play Florida or Texas for us to say, all right, that was a good game and that was a good weekend. No, we know what
Agreed.
good is.
Yeah.
And I think that we can come out of this 5-day and 5 games in 3 days and say, even against lesser opponents, we know what good is, and that was good. And that's what I'm hoping for is you showed a lot of growth from week 1 to week 2. Cool. Let's see
Absolutely.
even more from week 2 to week 3.
That's so true. I was wondering about the Wichita State squad because I know they've in the past been a very good team, and I don't know what or how that compares to how they are now. But I guess we'll find out in a few days. So what is the last weekend of February? It's totally lost my brain. They play at Love's Field, right?
Yeah,
Is it another?
it kind of in a lot of ways very similar to this weekend's. It almost feels
Okay,
like it's
yes.
I had to look at it, do a double take on the schedule a couple of days ago because I'm like, is this like a 2-week tournament essentially, and they're just going to
Right?
take a break in between? But yeah, it's just
Kansas.
yeah, KU will come to town. Maybe one of again, I don't think KU is like some great team that's going to make a super regional, but it's at least
Yeah.
a name opponent. So no, I mean, plenty of opportunities to see the team coming up here in a couple of weeks. Here is the good thing.
Absolutely, at Love's Field. I won't be there for a couple weekends. I will be there at the South Carolina game, and I can't wait for that one. I kind of made it my personal mission back in the fall to hit all of the SEC home openers for all the major sports. So I have done that so far, and I'm planning to do that for baseball as well in March. And so my niece and I will be there on the 7th for South Carolina, and I'm pumped because Quincy Lilio is batting it up out there. So I've seen her at the top of their list and really doing a good job. And I'm happy for her. I mean, I like her. She's a great player. I hated to see her go, but I get it. I mean, it just is what it is. So I'm happy to see her doing good. And S.J. Guerin at Auburn this past weekend, that is so crazy. I actually texted Plank. So SJ's dad is from my hometown, and I know Plank went to college with him. So I texted him and was like, "Did you see this?" I'm so happy for her. I mean, I know she didn't have her shining moments on our roster, and I hate that, but I'm happy that she found somewhere to go because she had a hell of a good weekend this past weekend in Clearwater. So good for her. I'm very happy for her.
No, yeah, I mean, and really, kind of everybody that leaves this program seemingly does it in a right way.
Yes.
And there's a difference in college softball, college football. A lot of times, not everyone
Mm-hmm.
associated with the college football program leaves the right way. They're looking for a handout. That didn't happen with S.J. Guerin or
No,
Quincy
not at
Lilio. Like
all.
they're great people, and they just weren't going to get to play a lot here. It's hard to play at Oklahoma. There's
It is.
really good players at every single position, several
Mm-hmm.
good players. So that's awesome. And I think as an OU fan, you should feel some pride for that. That,
Absolutely.
okay, well, look at what they're doing at this other school now.
Mm-hmm.
Not great that we got to face both of them. Like, we'll,
I
we'll see
know.
how that goes. But that just shows you even more the overall depth of this program that Quincy Lilio was having a hard time getting on the field at Oklahoma. Now she's up there with Ella Parker in terms of
Yes.
numbers for SEC hitters right now.
And good for her. I'm happy for her, like you said. I haven't seen much on Avery Hodge. She's at LSU. Have you
Yep,
seen
she's at
anything on
LSU.
her? I
I
haven't.
haven't. No, they have a freshman pitcher that's just tearing it up right now. But I need to check in on Avery Hodge and see. They just had a
Yeah.
big tournament in Baton Rouge this weekend, though.
I can't remember when we play LSU. Do they come to Norman or do we go there?
They do not play LSU this year in the
Okay.
regular
I
season,
couldn't
so maybe in
remember.
the SEC tournament or something.
Well, we played there, I think it was last year that we played in Baton Rouge. It may have just been like one game or something, or it may have been 2 years ago. I don't know. Anyway, I just remember hearing the players talk about that being a hard place to play, and not that I'm surprised because I feel like every sport in Baton Rouge is that way. So I'm relieved to know we don't go there. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. So,
It's a really cool softball facility. I was in the RV park, which is a bit of a walk from Tiger Stadium there to LSU for the football game this year. But in the RV park, which is massive, there's RVs everywhere. Softball field's right there. So I can't
okay.
imagine the tailgating that happens outside for a softball game out there. It's pretty prime location for a
Wow. That's
tailgating.
awesome.
Yeah.
Listen, no offense, I guess I could say to LSU fans, but Baton Rouge is one of those places that you won't catch me going. I was at the Sugar Bowl in '04, and that was basically a home game for them. And I swore then I would not go to another LSU event. And then I somehow ended up at the Peach Bowl.
hmm
Joe Burrow's year. I just haven't had the best experiences with LSU fans, and so I really mean it when I say I'm never going there.
Yeah. Well, and I was at that same Sugar Bowl. I've still never seen an opposing fan base act like that. I've never seen.
Gosh, it
But
was
I will say it was completely different in Baton Rouge this year. I was also at the
okay.
Peach
Good.
Bowl.
Hmm.
They weren't bad.
No, they weren't bad then.
They were super. I mean, it was the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and it's leftover turkey and the gumbo. I mean, I ate so much food. They had to roll me out of there. I
That's
was shocked
awesome.
about how nice they were. I mean, we heard a little chirping after the game,
Good.
but
Yeah.
compared to the Super Bowl, it was not even the same stratosphere of
Well,
what we.
that's good to know. I mean, I know those people down there are crazy, and that's great. I love their support for their teams. I mean, I watched the gymnastics team the other night. They were at LSU on Friday night. That place was packed
Hmm.
and it was loud. So I was not surprised, but I just that's not a place I don't think that I can handle because I don't do very well with that. But yeah, I mean they're very passionate for their athletic program, and I certainly can't fault them for that.
Yeah, passionate is definitely a word to use. I think that
Yeah.
their attitude is, and what they've told me is, we'll talk some mess to you, but then we'll say, "Hey, come over and get some gumbo," which that's fine. I mean, I can appreciate some passion, but what we
Yeah.
saw in New Orleans was, I don't know if that was passion. That was
No,
another word.
I don't know what that was, but it was definitely one of the worst experiences I've ever had at an away game. And the only thing that rivals that is a Bedlam game. It would have been like 2001 or 2. And I actually left that game early. And I've told this story before because my husband is actually a Poke and he graduated from OSU. And I left Stillwater that year in 2001 or 2. And I said, I will never come back here again. And I left the game in the third quarter. We were getting beat. I want to say it's 2001 because I think we were coming off our national championship year. Um, I left that game early, and not because I was mad we were getting beat. It was just the people around me were awful. And I mean, I can ignore it and I can handle it to an extent, but one, people think, oh, that's a girl. I'm going to talk all this smack to her, and she's just not going to know what to say back. And that's not the case. And then it just keeps escalating and escalating. And I was like, if I don't leave, I'm going to jail. So I left, said I was never going back. And I actually did not go back to Stillwater for close to a decade after that. And when I got married, I told my husband, I will go to Stillwater with you for literally anything, but not Bedlam football. And
Mhm.
I have gone to Bedlam softball, basketball, men's and women's, baseball, all of it, but I will not go for football. And I didn't go to the last Bedlam football game in Stillwater. My friend went with my husband because he has season football tickets up there. And I was like, I'm not going. And people were like, I can't believe you wouldn't go. It's the last Bedlam game until who knows when. I was like, I don't care. I can assure you it's better for everybody involved that I don't go. And so I don't have any regrets there. And for the most part, I've had fairly good experiences, even in Stillwater after that. It just kind of depends on who you're around and all of that. And like I said, I've been up there for softball, basketball, and for the most part, they're fine. But that one bad experience at Bedlam football, and I'm out. I just can't
Yeah.
do it. And then the same for LSU. Like, I don't think I can do it. But I've had a lot of people tell me that Florida fans are not the easiest to deal with. I don't think I've ever had any dealing with Florida fans, but I guess we'll find out soon enough on that. But
Yeah.
I've had
I
several
guess
people
they were
tell me that.
jerks at the national championship game 2008 season, and I did a little reconnaissance work this year on the road in the SEC, which I don't know what your experiences were. I know we were both at the Ole Miss game. Auburn fans were maybe the nicest fans I've dealt with. LSU was cool. Ole Miss was fine. I mean, they weren't as welcoming as I thought. Missouri wasn't as bad as I thought they'd be. But I asked like every single SEC fan base in Norman, where we were at, like, okay, who do you guys not like? Who's the worst fan base? I heard really the whole time Georgia. Oh, Georgia. Oh, grown men barking at you. And I went to the Rose Bowl when OU played there, and they were fine. They were
Okay,
cool.
yeah.
But I think it's, they haven't won in a long time. And some fan bases don't know how to win, and they act like jerks. And maybe that
That's
was
so true.
LSU back in 2003. So it sounds
That could
like
be it.
Georgia right now, maybe the worst in the SEC, but I have heard Florida too, like definitely not welcoming, a little bit nasty. They're a fickle fan base as it is. They'll show up when they're
Yeah.
good, not so much when they're bad. But Overall, I had good experiences this year. I guess just don't run into any Georgia fans anytime soon.
Okay, well, good to know. Well, our basketball team plays at Florida tonight, so I guess we'll see how their crowd is. Yeah, I don't know. Do you follow basketball much, or
I
are
watch
you?
watch every single
Okay,
minute of every game, good
I
or
figured
bad.
you
Mostly
did.
bad this year, but
Same.
I'm
Same, me too. I follow our women too and watch them. But yeah, the girls are fun to watch. I'm real excited about them and their potential. Looks like they may get to host a first round game. So I'm rooting for that because I'd love to try to make it up there for that. And then, yeah, I like Peyton Verhulst. She's one of my favorites to watch. So, and I'm glad Reagan Beers is back. We need her. So I'm glad she's back. Yeah, they're exciting. They're fun to watch. So I'm excited to see what they do. And then,
well, you just
far
said it. They're fun to watch, you
they
know?
are.
And look, if OU basketball was winning like the Kelvin days, 48-46, then I don't think I
Yeah.
complain too much. I just want them to win. But they're
Mm-hmm.
not winning, and it's not very entertaining. But OU women's basketball, they haven't seen a shot that they don't like before. They'll fire up some three balls now. Now that gets them in trouble at times if they're not hitting shots, but they are entertaining, like you said, to watch, and that's it's.
They are, and they're finding ways to win. I mean, I've seen
Mhm.
them be down, or, it's a close game at halftime or whatever, and they somehow find a way to come out and get the job done. And I mean, our softball team has done that several times. Last weekend in Cali, we had those extra innings and they still somehow found a way to win. And that's what good teams do. And sadly, our men are not doing that. And I've been at several games this season for the men's basketball as well. And it's disappointing. I mean, I was at the Texas game and it was a 9 o'clock tip on a Wednesday night. And that was hard because the crowd was better than I expected it to be that night, given the situation and just how we were playing. But I kind of, after the game was going the way it was, I kind of had made up my mind, okay, well, I'm going to sneak out a little early. I mean, I had to drive an hour and a half back home. So I thought, well, I'll just sneak out a little bit early, which I don't normally do. But then we came back and I thought, we might win this thing. I'm not going anywhere.
Mhm.
So I stayed till the clock ran out, which is more what I normally do anyway. But that one just about killed me for a lot of reasons. But I just could not wrap my brain around the fact that we didn't even show up basically until the back half of the second half. And I just thought if we had done this before, we could have won this game and we should have won that game. We should have won that game. Texas was 0-3 in conference, I think, when they came to Norman, and we were 0-3 at the time. There was no excuse for that one for sure. That one really made me mad. I mean, I've
Yeah.
been mad a lot in the past
Hey,
month or so, but that one really made me mad.
yeah. I mean, we've got some scars now from OU basketball. I mean, from this year, but years past. The A&M game, how they lost that one.
Yeah, I was
That
there too. Yeah.
Texas game, as you mentioned, the LSU game the other night. It's like they want to lose in the most painful way
I
possible or
know.
something. But yeah, I mean, it's disappointing that they're not winning overall, but not winning on their home floor. And man, they got the game at Florida tonight. I mean, it's like, of course, the SEC decides to be the best conference like in college basketball history the first year that OU's here.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. I don't know anything about Florida and their basketball team. So I mean, I'll be watching tonight. We'll see how they do. But man, we need some win. We need 4 more wins to get in the tournament. And I know all of the bracketology stuff is showing that we still could get in. And I don't really understand how at this point, if we're being honest. I mean, I know we had some good wins back in the fall, but I mean, we've got to get several more wins at least before we can make the tournament for sure. But at this point, I don't even want to make the tournament because it's not going to be pretty. I know that sounds terrible. I mean, of course, I want to make the tournament, but because if we don't, then definitely bad things are going to happen for somebody. And I hate that. But at this point, I don't want to make the tournament because it's not going to be pretty. And I don't want to see that. It's embarrassing to me to like go and lose the first round. And I'm just afraid that's what would happen if we're being
Yeah.
honest. I hate to
Lose to
say
that
that.
school that people found out like 3 days ago that they even exist. Lose to that school in the first
Yeah,
round.
yeah, exactly. You're just like, oh, okay, some directional school from Massachusetts, but they're good and they're gonna beat us. So I hate that. So I'm really good friends with Dayton Forsyth, his aunt, and so I know his family, and he is so fun to watch. And I've enjoyed watching him. He's getting more playing time, as the season goes on, and he's a fun one to watch. But I'm excited to see for him as the years progress. I think he's one that will stick around, through the years, and I'm excited to watch him grow. And of course, I like watch Jeremiah Fears. I think he's got some growing to do. Do you think he's going to go in the draft, or do you think he'll stay? I'm kind of back and forth.
Well, so I understand the point of people that watch the games that say, okay, well, I see and I hear you guys saying that he is a projected top 10 pick, but I don't see that. And a lot of times I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. I think the thing that people have to remember is he's supposed to be a senior in high school.
Yes.
Now, is he playing like he's one of the 10 best players in college basketball right now? Well, no, of course not. But a lot of the NBA draft is projecting for the future, and this guy wouldn't be a 24-year-old. I mean, he'd be, he wouldn't even be 21 years old yet when he's being drafted, and they'd say, we see the upside, we're going to create him into that. So I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on it as well. But if he's really a projected top 10 pick, I think that he'll probably go to the NBA draft would be my guess. And if he doesn't, here's a kind of a sobering question to ask is, let's say that he decides to come back and play college basketball for one more year. Is OU going to be able to keep him? Or is one of these
wondered that
teams
too.
come back there and say, hey, man, we'll give you this much money, come play for us 1 year, and then go off to the league. So
Yeah.
I hope he's back at OU next year, but that's far from a guarantee.
Yeah, I've wondered that as well. And part of me, like we said, I've been back and forth on if he'll go to the draft. But I'm like, well, I'd almost rather him go to the draft than go somewhere else.
Sure.
I mean,
yeah.
good.
He's going to go to the
him.
SEC probably if he goes
Yes.
somewhere else.
Yep. And then we'll get him, and it'll be like, oh gosh, we've got a former player at Houston, and then we've got Owe at Kentucky, and I can't remember who else has ventured off elsewhere that we've either met or going to meet. And that's, I mean, good for them. It's kind of like the softball girls, good for them. But it's hard too, and even with football, like seeing these players go off to teams, and that we are going to meet them somewhere else, like Jackson Arnold going to Auburn. They're coming to Norman in September, and that, I mean, I think they're our first home SEC game, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And I hope he does well there. I think he's a talented player. He's a nice kid. I've met him. Super nice kid. I wish him the best. But I don't want him to come to Norman and whoop up on us. But I hope he does well at Auburn. And I really do think that he will. I really do. But I don't want him to come here and whoop up on this. And, I'm excited about John Mateer. I think he looks promising. I think he shows a lot of potential for us. And, hey, welcome back, Kevin Wilson, right?
Yeah. Can I give you a hot sports take on John Mateer that I thought of on my icy drive over here today?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is actually a positive here. So this is in a world where positive things happen with OU football. Bob Stoops has said multiple times that Josh Heupel was the most critical player in his time in Oklahoma because he's the quarterback early on and he really kind of got it going. My hope is that John Mateer is that player for Brent Venables. That we're saying 15 years from now that there were other great players in the program. There were even great players before John Mateer, but John Mateer is the guy that made it all go. All go. And as critical as Heupel was as a leader, like John Mateer apparently is, and just as an overall quarterback, I think a lot of Brent's tenure does rest in the hands of a transfer portal quarterback. And if it goes well, I think it can totally change the narrative of what.
Absolutely. No, you're exactly right. And that's certainly true for him. And I don't want him or Arbuckle even to, I mean, they know the pressure that's on them. They have to know the situation and where things stand going forward. And that is a lot of pressure. I hope it doesn't get to them because it seems like Arbuckle is very talented, like he's got that offensive mind, and I'm excited to see it come to play on the field. And yeah, I really have high hopes for Mateer, and I could see him being kind of like Josh Heupel, like you were saying, like that pivotal player, because Josh Heupel was there when I was at OU, and I saw him on campus a lot, and he was always super friendly. He wasn't one that was hiding, like not wanting people to see him and stuff like that. And Mateer has that. And it seems like Mateer's even more outgoing than Josh Heupel was, because Josh Heupel was still kind of shy. He was just, out there, not hiding. But Mateer seems to be pretty outgoing and loud about his presence. I mean, he has been at gymnastics meet, basketball games, tennis matches. I'm sure he'll be at the Diamond Sports this spring. So good for him getting out there and getting seen, because he, people, I'm sure they already know his face and his name, but it helps to get it out there, and he needs that support behind him, because it's tough being a quarterback. I had season football tickets for years, and I've sat through a lot of stuff. Even in the 90s, I was in high school, but my dad had season tickets, and so I would go with him, and I've sat through a lot of crap, and I've sat through the good times too. And I sat through 49-0 against Texas 2 years ago. And, it's a roller coaster ride, but it sure is fun when you're at the top. I hate it when the crowd is booing someone, even if it's the other team. I don't like that. I just feel like that's disrespectful. But I just remember back, with Rattler and Caleb and all of that, and them chanting for one player and wanting the other. And that is so hard for those kids to hear. And I try to remind myself, like, those are just kids. Like, what if that was my kid that is getting benched because the crowd is chanting because they want another player out there? And I know it all comes down to whoever's getting the job done on the field, and I'm fine with that, because that's the way it has to be. But I just think with Mateer and Hawkins both here next fall, like, what's going to happen? And I mean, I like Mike Hawkins. I mean, clearly I think he wants to be at OU. I mean, he had every opportunity to go elsewhere, and he chose to stay. And I think he almost knows that he's going to be behind Mateer. But, I really hope that Mateer does well for a lot of reasons, because I don't want to get in any weird, bad situations like that, because that's just not good for anybody. And, I'm sure he gave up a lot to come here from Washington, from Washington State. So that's a big move. So I do obviously hope that he does well for a lot of reasons, and selfish reasons too. But yeah, here's hoping, because a lot is riding on him and Arbuckle. And I mean, I think our defense will be fine. I mean, I think it'll be pretty constant. I mean, I know Zach Alley leaving, I don't feel like is going to be a huge impact in a negative way, because Venables is awesome. I mean, he knows what he's doing. So I'm not super worried about that. I really want the offense to catch up to the defense, because we just have not had that product on the field. Gosh, I don't even know how long. It's been forever since we've had that offense, defense, balance, just complementary football at the same time. And I'm ready for that. Like, we're long overdue for that.
Well, you need it. And I'm on social media probably way more than the average person, probably way too much, but I kind of have to be on a daily basis.
Me too.
I probably since 1998 is what I would say. But it's been a long time since I've just seen collectively the fan base just as down and as negative and almost depressed as they are right now. Now, I think softball starting, baseball starting certainly helps, but just the overall mood with the OU fan base is just it's not very positive right now. We need something good to happen.
We do.
And look, softball is incredibly popular around here. And if they go win another national championship, man, that would really help. If baseball makes a run to Omaha, that would really help. But it is a football fan base. It just is. So nothing is going to cure the Sooner Blues, I guess is what we call it, quite like an amazing football season. And I think that there's a perception around the SEC right now that, Oklahoma wasn't SEC ready and all that. And again, if they make a run to Omaha, that'll help. If they win another Women's College World Series, that'll certainly help as well. But nothing's going to change the narrative and the attitude around here quite like a really good football season. So everybody needs it. Brent Venables needs it. Joe Castiglione needs it. We need it. The program needs it. This feels like, to me, one of the most critical football seasons of my lifetime. And not that
I agree.
It has to be doomed for the next 20 years if they're not good again this year, but for the immediate future, the current administration, the head coach, it's as important a football season as I can remember, for sure.
That is very true, because I love Brent Venables, and I have loved him since he was at OU in the early 2000s, and I've always had a lot of respect for him and wished him well when he was at Clemson. And when we hired him, I was pumped. I mean, I do, and I still feel like that he's the one for the job. I know he's had a lot of personal stuff going on, and that's really hard too, because I think if that were going on in my life, obviously you're going to be affected. Your mind isn't where it needs to be, as far as work goes. It's on whatever's going on in your life. And I don't fault him for that. I hate that because I think it's cost him a lot, just his mind is on his wife, and that's where it should be. But at the same time, we expect a product on the field and a job to get done, and he's going to pay the cost if that doesn't happen. And I agree, this is a very pivotal time for him, and I think he did good by bringing in Arbuckle, because I don't know of anyone that is better qualified that would have come in that can possibly help him clean up the mess, so to speak. And I feel bad for Seth Luttrell. I don't think that was necessarily the best hire, don't get me wrong, but it was a bad situation, and I hate that for him. OU is his alma mater, and the fan base has such mixed feelings about him now, and I really hate that he went out the way that he did, but it had to be done. And I feel the same way about Joe John. I'm kind of on the fence about him at the moment, and I don't mean that rudely, but he's got a long way to go too to win back the fan base, as does Arbuckle, this to prove himself to them. And so I'm just really hoping it happens, because we all know probably what's going to happen. I mean, we could be sitting here in a year and it'd be a completely different staff, scenario, everything. And nobody wants that, because those are people's livelihoods, jobs, all the things, and not to mention the players. I mean, if that happens, what happens with the players? Like, a lot of them aren't going to stay. They're going to venture elsewhere. It is just 99 problems that nobody wants to deal with. So here's hoping that we have a good season. And I'm really thinking, if we can get 9 wins, I think that will be an acceptable improvement, I feel like.
Yeah.
I just really hope we can do that.
Yeah, 9 wins. I think he's definitely back, and maybe that gives you a chance to make the playoff this year with the ridiculous schedule you have. You're right when you say nobody wants that, and
No.
I don't want that. You don't want that, but more importantly, I've heard like the administration does not want this. Joe C does not want this. That's not always the case for a college football head coach. There are some guys that, maybe they're a jerk. They don't get along the best with the administration. And, hey, if we fire this guy midseason at the end of the year, ain't going to hurt my feelings if we have someone coming in. Brent is such a great guy. And everyone likes him so much and is pulling for him. And you mentioned the situation that he has with his family. Everybody is – it almost feels like some people might go down with the ship if this doesn't work. How much they do want it to work.
I know.
So
I agree. Yeah.
everybody is kind of aligned in, we want this to work. We want Brent to be the guy. They want Brent to be the guy because personally they just like him. But let's be honest, and OU has been one of the few really athletic programs over the past 10 years that haven't had to pay a huge buyout. We've been the ones that have laughed at Texas A&M for paying Jim Boylan.
Oh my gosh.
The ones that have laughed at Auburn and LSU and all these schools like, are you guys idiots? You're paying $30 million, $50 million to a buyout? I mean, Porter Moser's buyout is $7.5 million. That would be way more than OU's ever paid for a buyout before. And that's not what you would have to pay for Brent Venables. So what's best for the Oklahoma football program, I think emotionally, is yes, for Brent Venables to be the guy. Financially is to not have to pay a massive, massive buyouts in this era of collegiate sports.
And especially where we're at right now, within a calendar year, having two big buyouts.
Yeah.
That's on, I mean, those are both options at the time, given the situations. Like, nobody wants to pay out $15 million in buyouts in a calendar year. And then you're going to still have to come up with bonuses and all of that to bring in somebody else.
They pay their buyout. They're going to leave.
Yes.
You're not going to go cheap on that next hire. It'd be a massive hire. So
you can't go cheap on it because then you'll just be in the same boat in another couple of years. So it's a very pivotal time at the university in general because men's basketball and football are the two sports that draw the largest crowds. And I mean, football by far is the biggest moneymaker and brings in the crowd. But men's basketball, yeah, it's just a rough time. And like you said, well, people can be fickle, and it's understandable though, given the situation. But we're still packing out the football stadium every weekend with 85,000 people.
And showing up to road games, by the way, every road game this year was
Absolutely.
OU fans.
I mean, Dallas was packed. I was in Oxford, and there were tons of OU fans there, and it appeared there were tons in Auburn. Yeah, that's fantastic. And I really hope they keep that up. I think a lot of people going, oh, these are new places we've never been. It's the chance to go to Oxford and, do all of this stuff and go all these new stadiums and everything. So I hope that newness doesn't wear off over time, because we need that fan base to follow us. But yeah, it's a very pivotal time in the athletic department. That is for sure. And I saw yesterday, I think it was an article that Josie was talking about the funding and how much money football had brought in and basketball. And softball brings in, I think, four point something $million, but it costs 7 something million to function as a softball program. And I think we basically lost $3 million as a softball program. And that's mind blowing to me, because that place is packed and the support is there. And I mean, I know you can't help the expenses, like travel expenses and all of that, but it's just crazy to think that a program that's won 4 national championships in a row just lost $3 million. I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is, but that's just mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Well, when you're going to that, where is it at? I guess Palm Springs for that tournament for as long as they
Yeah.
are. Patty had mentioned it, how expensive that is. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they lost that much, but how much money did they bring in for other programs? And not that those other programs made money, but I mean, look at it from like San Diego State was packed out, sold out. That's the most gate that they've probably ever had for a softball game before.
For
Same thing with
sure.
Loyola Marymount and Long Beach State and Cal State Fullerton and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they bring in a lot of money. They
They
also
do.
spend a lot of money. They probably spend more than any
Yeah.
college softball program that was out there would be my guess too.
You're probably right. And it's crazy to think about though. And I know like gymnastics or women's gymnastics, I mean, there'll be a decent crowd. I was there a couple weeks ago on a Friday night. There's a decent crowd for that, but the money makers are football and basketball, and we've got to get things straightened out there to get that product on the court, on the field, to get the people coming. I don't know, how many home games do men's basketball have left? Just a
They would have
few.
3 left. They'll
Okay.
play Missouri at home. They play Mississippi State
Yes.
at home on Saturday. They'll play Missouri at home and then Kentucky at home.
Kentucky. I knew the women's only have 2 home games left. I really wish that more people would get out and watch the women. I know it's hard, and there's so much to do. I mean, I live an hour and a half away. If I lived closer, I would be at so much more stuff. But I try to make several basketball games every season for men and women, gymnastics, all the things, because I enjoy it. But if I'm not there, I'm watching it on TV. But I always get sad to see the crowd with the women's games, because, like we talked about, like, they're fun to watch. I love Coach Jenny. Like, she's awesome. Like, she's on my list of people to meet. But she's incredible, and I hope they do well in the tournament. All that to say, people get out and support when there's something to see, and I wish more people would realize that the women's basketball team are really putting something out there to be seen. And hopefully, if things go the way they should, they'll host the first round of the tournament, and hopefully they'll pack out LNC.
Yeah, well, I mean, and here's the critical thing about it is, you see what South Carolina gets on the road. Talking about women's basketball,
Man,
South
yes.
Carolina and LSU and really a lot of other places. And here's the thing. They knocked it out of the park with the hire of Jenny Bronchek. They did.
Absolutely.
The problem, though, potentially moving forward is, there's a lot of other programs across college basketball that see what she's done, because that the basketball program was not in good shape when she took it over, and she's not won a national championship or anything, but it's been pretty good here. They won the Big 12 regular season crown a year ago. Jenny
Yeah.
Bronchek is a fantastic coach, and if you had to hire another coach tomorrow, I don't think OU could hire another coach as good as Jenny Bronchek.
I
What
agree.
I'm hoping is she's all good at Oklahoma, wants to be here. They're paying her what she's worth, because it would be really unfortunate for another program that draws better to say, hey, you want to play in front of more fans, have more resources to win at a high level, come coach our team, because that would be really bad for OU women's basketball if they didn't have Jenny Baranchek alongside.
I completely agree. We definitely do not want that. She does seem like she's really happy in Norman and that she's all in, and I hope that she is because she has been a difference maker for sure. Getting Reagan Beers this season too was a huge nab for us in the portal. They are fun to watch, so I'm excited to see how they do this season. I hope they do better in the tournament than they did last year. I mean, I know they made it to the second round, but I really hope they go further because I'm here for that. What are your thoughts on the LNC
Well, I don't.
situation?
It doesn't sound like it's in a good spot right now,
Yeah.
which is extremely unfortunate. I was hopeful about it probably 5 months ago or so, but it just doesn't. Frankly, it doesn't feel like it's heading in the right direction. I see. And there's a big disagreement about this.
Yes.
I love the idea, and so let me, because I've seen other places that have a similar plan in place. Like for instance, the OU Auburn weekend for football. I'm a huge Braves fan, so did the show Friday in Atlanta. Got to go to a Braves game on Friday night and the OU Auburn game on Saturday. It was awesome. And they have right next to the ballpark, they have the entertainment district with restaurants, bars, and
Yes.
everything. There's a lot to do in Atlanta. That place was packed with people before a baseball game. I mean, that place was packed.
That's
St.
awesome.
Louis has one.
Hmm.
Arlington has one with Texas Live. I mean,
Yes.
it adds to the overall experience. In a perfect world, you would have that on campus, but it's
Yeah.
not possible to have both of those things. I also live in Oklahoma City, Midtown Oklahoma City, and to get from Norman to Highway 9 and over to the LNC, that's a good 50-minute to an hour proposition.
For
You put it
sure.
on I-35, I think it's a lot easier for people from Moore, Oklahoma City, Edmond to get there. I'm overall a fan of it. I think it'd be awesome for the city of Norman. I think it'd be awesome for us fans to be able to go to a basketball game and hit up a bar or a restaurant
Yeah.
before, during, after, just to have other options. And it just doesn't sound like that's in a great place right now to happen. The LNC, I've grown up going there my entire life. So I have a certain soft spot for it in some ways because I've grown
Me
up there in a
too.
lot of different ways. But it's just not a great environment for college
Yeah.
basketball. And I think OU basketball needs a shot in the arm. They need some momentum. They need something exciting to happen. And I think an arena would be a great way to do that, especially with all the other amenities that would come with it. I can't say today that it's very far from the finish line from what I understand.
Yeah, I that's kind of how I feel about it too. And I don't disagree with what you said. I've kind of been on the fence about it the whole time, but I do think a lot of it is like you said, I have a soft spot for LNC as well because I've grown up going there my entire life. And so it's hard to think that sentimental part would be gone. And I don't necessarily know what the plans are for the arena if we do get a new one, if they're going to keep it, or I mean, I have no idea. But I've just kind of gone back and forth in that I don't know if there's anything they can do to the current state of LNC to make it where it needs to be. So I don't know. I've been back and forth about the whole thing, but you raise really good points because getting in and out of Highway 9 and all of that is just a pain. I mean, it really is. And honestly, even me, like coming from the south, if I'm going to the north side of Norman on I-5, it's probably going to still take less time than going across on Highway 9. So that makes sense too. But like I said, I've kind of been torn on it the whole time. I'm kind of like, well, it is what it is. I'm not one that is in the vicinity to vote on anything, so my opinion really doesn't matter. But I can see the pros and cons to it for sure. But it is weird that it wouldn't be near campus. I mean, there's not really much to work with as far as that goes. So I hate that. But I remember back in the early 2000s when I was in college, I used to travel to Baylor football a lot just because I had friends that went to Baylor and it was a chance, to go somewhere. So when OU played, I would go down to Waco and their football stadium was off campus, several miles down the road. And that was always kind of weird to me, but at the same time, that seems to be the case for a lot of different schools in their different arenas. So I mean, it is what it is. But like you said, it's not in a good place right now. So who knows what'll happen? Is it a money thing right now, or what's the?
Well, it's really just kind of a separation between OU and the city of Norman because
Okay.
there'd be other businesses that come in with this entertainment district around it, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the thought is, which I think is inaccurate, that, well, if you bring in these other outside businesses or whatever, it's going to draw money away from the local merchants in Norman. I just think it's going to bring more people to
Yeah.
Norman, more concert. I mean, this isn't just going to be an OU arena. I think the thing is, OU would occupy it 25% of the calendar year. So the city
Wow.
of
Okay.
Norman would have 75% of the time, if those numbers are right, for concert and just all these other things that you can do with a really cool arena to draw
Hmm.
people into the state. Because that University North Park area is one of the most like one of the biggest shopping centers in the entire state. It's booming for sure. So, but the problem is that the city of Norman is okay. Yeah, you can build it, but you have to pay for it because we're not going to help pay for that. And so it's a lot of money to do this. City of Norman doesn't want to pay for it. OU
Yeah.
wants the City of Norman to help pay for it. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
not
that's a mess. Well,
misinformation's out there like anything else. So
absolutely. It always is. So, okay, well, that's interesting. I guess we'll see what happens. So, I definitely think that something needs to be done improvement wise for the LNC. But again, like, I don't know that they want to invest in the LNC if they're still aiming to do something like that and spend that money there when it can be invested down the road. So, would everything like women's gymnastics, men's gymnastics, like, would everything move out there, do you think,
I
if they
think
were to
it's
do something?
the men's basketball, women's basketball, and maybe it's women's gymnastics that would.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't think men's. I don't think men's were. I don't think that they were a part. I think it's women's gymnastics, definitely OU basketball, and definitely OU women's basketball. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head if it was women's gymnastics as well, and I think that's yes
I
because
was
women's
thinking so.
gymnastics they're in the LNC and men's is at McCaslin Fieldhouse,
McCasland,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so I think women's would be out there too.
Yeah, and I went to a men's gymnastics meet a couple weeks ago in McCasland, and that's another building that has a soft spot in my heart because I graduated in that building, and I just think it's a cool atmosphere. But it was pretty full the night that we were there. I know that the men's gymnastics doesn't draw the crowd that the women do, but I wondered if that all does take place and the women move out there, if the men would then move over to LNC or if they would stay at McCasland. Because obviously the capacity and the ease of McCasland is not what it would be at LNC. But I don't even know what's going to happen to LNC if they do all of that. Are they planning on keeping it, maintaining it, or are they going to get rid of it?
They may not even know that,
Yeah,
honestly,
that's true.
because I think that they're at a point now where it's okay. What are our other options here? Do we want to
Yeah,
renovate the LNC? Do we want to look? I mean, there's been talk of looking elsewhere, and more or somewhere else to build this whole entertainment district. I think there's so many things on the table. They may not even be to the point of okay, what do we do with the LNC if we
that's
actually move?
true.
We'll
Yeah.
figure that out once we get there, maybe.
That's true. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens for sure. I'm intrigued. I mean, I hope it all works out however it needs to. I just want our teams to get the support that they deserve because I'm a big OU fan. So I like to support all the things. So the spring game, so all of the stuff going around about Nebraska saying they're not going to have a spring game and Sarkeesian's making the comments about how, oh yeah, I don't know that we want to do that either. What are your thoughts on spring football?
Well, I think that spring games are going to go away in a lot of different places. Like, I think that there's a chance. I haven't heard that this is 100%, but I think that there's a chance that this could be the last spring game as we've known it here at
Mm-hmm.
OU, this upcoming spring. Which, and I think that Matt Rule used, well, I don't want to allow other teams to scout. Okay. I talked to a Nebraska buddy that does radio up there, and he's using that as a reason just to take the spring game away entirely. So I think the point,
Okay.
apparently coaches would be okay with just doing away from the spring game, and other points are trying to be brought up about, hey, this is why we should do it. But I think in a lot of ways, Matt Rule is just floating out the idea, seeing how it would go over, and if fans were like, whatever, we don't care about the spring game, it's almost like, all right, everyone's a go now to cancel this thing. I hate it, and here's why. Not that the spring game is my favorite thing of the entire year. I just can't wait for the spring game or anything like that. I hate it because simply this. It's one less thing that the fans get. And it's
Yeah.
one less thing that the fans get when we're being asked right now to buy season tickets, to go to road games, to support all these sports. Hey, help us out with NIL, by the way, as
Yes.
well. Fans have never been asked to do more in collegiate athletics than they are now. And I just don't love the idea of asking a group of people to do more by also giving them less. So just by that principle, not that, I mean, would I miss the spring game? I don't know, maybe not, but I don't like that you keep asking me. I just got an email today from the athletic director saying, "Help me out," but you're taking
Yeah.
stuff away from me. I don't love that.
That is very true. I've always enjoyed the spring game just because it's one of those things that I've always done. But my birthday's in April. It's generally in the near vicinity of my birthday, and I've just always thought that that's fun because I love football and gives me a dose of my favorite sport, a halfway point before the season, and I've always enjoyed that, and it's just kind of always served personally for me as like a reunion with my college friends. We always get together and go to dinner afterwards and all that. So it's just like a special day for me, which I realize all those things can happen without a spring game. It's silly to think that it couldn't, but I've always just enjoyed being in the stadium and getting a small tease of what's to come and just getting that atmosphere that I love. I love football game days, and so just a small taste of that just kind of holds me over a little bit till the fall. So, but that's just me personally. I mean, I know there's a lot of pros and cons, but we have drawn some big crowds for spring games in the last several years, and it is crazy to think like what I'm sure all of these people, obviously we enjoy it, we go, so it's crazy to think that everybody would just be like, oh, okay, we don't do that anymore. I mean, I'm kind of back and forth on the reasoning behind it, and I know there's a lot of changes going on with football in the front office and all the things, so I guess we'll just kind of see what happens. But I mean, part of me would be sad for sure if it does go away, but I mean, I'll go on. It's softball season, and there's a lot of times softball's playing down the road during the spring game, so I mean, I love softball season just as much as football season. So I would get over it, but I would still be sad about it to an extent. But yeah, I mean, I'd get over it.
I think there'll be something in the spring, an open practice. I mean, my hope, I guess I should say, is they don't totally just alienate that day and you just can't come see your team. But like the actual game format, I don't think that's going to be around in college football for much longer, honestly.
I mean, it makes sense. But then, I think about fall softball. Like, I try to come up and see a game or two in the fall for that. And, baseball does the same thing. And it's just like those off-season teaser events that we all enjoy. And I would hate to see it go, but I somewhat understand the reasoning behind it. I guess we'll see what happens. But again, I appreciate you for coming on to visit with me today. I'll always listen to Diamond Envy. It's my favorite. But I have to have you on again down the road, and I appreciate you and Plank, my radio buddies. Thank you again to my friend Tyler McComas for joining me on this week's episode of Sooner Girl Sports Pod. And again, I would like to recognize this week's sponsor, HGX Design. So many thanks to my friends Sonia and Robin Hunter of HGX Design for sponsoring this episode. They created my logo and all of my merch and marketing items for the podcast, so I'm very thankful for them and their support. And thank you to everyone who's listening today. I hope that you will go like, follow, and subscribe across all social media at Sooner Girl Pod. And please subscribe and download each episode of the podcast from your favorite podcasting app. If you are interested in future advertising opportunities for the pod, please shoot me a message or send me an email to soonergirlsportspod@gmail.com. Thank you all for listening, and I can't wait to see you again next week on Wednesday, where we talk sports.